Hello there, Jamie here from the Center for Aligned Living. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. I hope that wherever you are, whenever you're watching this, I hope that I can be of service in some great or small way, maybe even if it's just planting a seed of something you think about in the future, to help you in your journey on your path to living spiritually aligned. I'm going to talk about something that has been on my mind for a little while, and I really hope that I give it justice. Validation. Validation is what I want to talk about. I even took notes, and guess what? I can't find those notes. So we're just going to wing it like we always do here, but I did look up a couple things, and I've got them over here on my screen that I can reference. So, again, a lot of everything almost that I talk about are things that I'm experiencing that I've learned in my path, along my path, my way. You know, we all have paths, we all have our own way. I truly believe that we are all working towards the same destination. We all came from the same source, and we will all go back to the same source. We're just all here expressing ourselves differently and having different experiences in this thing called life. And I discovered recently that I reach out quite frequently, or I was until I became aware of it. I reach out for validation. What does that mean? So, you know, I'll phone a friend. It's like, I feel this way. And it's almost like I want them to say, well, I do. I want them to say, well, that makes complete sense. You should feel that way, or, you know, what have you. Because validation, as it says right here on the trusty old internet, and this is the part that kind of riles me up, let's see, recognition or affirmation that a person or their feelings or opinions are valid or worthwhile. Let's just read that again. Recognition or affirmation that a person or their feelings or opinions are valid or worthwhile. So we're always talking about, you know, feeling unworthy, and, you know, we're all worthy, and opinions and feelings, if you're having them, then they're valid, okay? Now, you may have a misunderstanding, and you're absolutely encouraged to reach out to the person involved, if there is another person involved, to seek understanding and clarification. Then whatever you come up with is what you come up with, right? And we don't have to label it right, wrong, positive, negative. You just, if you're feeling it, there is a reason. Now, you can certainly dig deeper into the hows and the whys that you are feeling something, and I encourage that as well. But what we're talking about today is this constant reaching out for external sources to validate our feelings and our opinions. And I just don't know if that's the healthiest route to take. So, when I realized that I was doing that, and how often I was doing that, I did a little soul searching. I'm like, okay, well, why would I look externally for that? How do I validate myself? Why do I need to, you know, even pay somebody to be like, oh yeah, you're right? If it, you know, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So, I mean, maybe I'm behind in the times for growth, but this is where I'm at, or I was, so I've worked on it. So what I started doing, okay, so self-validation, it's a thing, you can do this for yourself. And okay, so just on the internet, some different ideas of what self-validation looks like includes, they're saying, encouraging yourself, acknowledging your strengths, successes, progress, and effort. That's good. Noticing and accepting your feelings, whatever they are. Prioritizing your needs. That's nice. Treating yourself with kindness, even if you deemed what you're feeling is negative, okay? Just don't live there, right? saying nice things to yourself. We've talked about that over and over again. But I've never really, and accepting your limitations, flaws, and mistakes. This is a really good list. And aren't these things that we talk about here at the Center for Aligned Living that I feel that if any time myself or you are reaching externally for validation or justification or anything like that, it is simply we're coming from a place of lack and we may not be aligned. And so what do? We go back to our alignment and then we run it up the flagpole, if you will, and see what comes back. So we take care of ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that relationships are not great and wonderful and fulfilling and rewarding. They are. But I think that we all should just really focus on taking care of ourselves so that when we come to someone else in relationship, whether it's family or work or, partnership, then we're coming as whole and self-sufficient, and we don't rely upon that person to validate us, to justify our feelings. I mean, some of that's okay, right? But if it's too much, it's just, is that fair? Is that fair to the other person? Is it fair to you if the other person was doing that to you? So these are just things to think about and things that we can all incorporate and add into our daily. But really, another thing that has helped me in this self-validation is journaling. And I know a lot of people don't like to journal, and that's totally fine. But there are a lot of unique or different ways that you can journal. You can, my journal used to be regurgitating the day, and usually it was pretty negative, and he said, she said, blah, blah, blah. That was not very helpful for me. I mean, I guess it was okay to get kind of like purge, but I want to do something different now, okay? I want to not be in a place where you perpetuate the negativity or whatever. And so gratitude journals are a great way. But for self-validation, what I started doing was it's like, okay, well, here's the thing, excuse me, that I'm looking for validation on, right? And so I write it down, and then I would make sure that I'm centered and aligned, and whatever answer or validation would come to me, and I would write that down. And then I just started doing that, and I encourage myself, and I treat myself with kindness, and I prioritize my needs, all those things that we do in learning how to deal with ourselves. And then when I feel like I need to validate again, have external validation, I go back to that part in the journal. I go back to those lists and that part, and I say, well, look at this. I can trust myself. I can make these decisions. I can do these things. I knew I didn't need to call somebody else to have my own opinion or feelings validated. I can do this on my own. And it's a beautiful, wonderful, wonderful way to really be in touch with yourself and to start relying more and more on your higher self and your alignment. And I recommend it because, like I said, I didn't even realize that I was searching externally for these things. And then I started going until I started trying to I've really been watching, watching my behavior, watching my patterns, and it's, maybe you're going through the same thing. And I strongly recommend that you, when you can, that you just start taking notes about how you're feeling and writing it down and then referring back to it if you, later on down the road. And if you're off, you're off. I mean, maybe you did have a misunderstanding. They happen all the time, right? It's not a big deal. If the relationship is that important to you or whatever the scenario is, maybe it's your personal responsibility. Maybe it's between a parent and a child or, your work. So those relationships are definitely important. I mean, all relationships. I shouldn't say shouldn't. If you're in a negative, hostile, unhealthy, you name it, relationship, and you've tried and you've struggled, especially if you're in danger, I'm not ever recommending staying. you have to be safe first. I'm just referring to like personal responsibility, okay? You have a job, so it's an obligation. You have a child or a parent, you know, there's a certain level of obligation. Aside from toxicity, maybe you should leave that. That's a whole nother topic. But relationships are important. You know, I'm divorced, and I have a significant other, and I often reflect back on what I learned during that relationship and how I could have done things differently. And I just try to. I can't really control. I cannot all control the other person, nor can you. You can influence people potentially, but the only person that I can control is me. And so using these relationships to, you know, progress in my evolution has been really wonderful. That doesn't mean you have to be in the toxic situation to learn from it. You can be completely removed from it and learn from it years later. Have an aha moment or whatever. Things can come up, and you can, you know, even call upon that experience as a learning tool for in the future. But relationships are important, and how you exit, stay, what have you, whatever. The way that you handle yourself is important. And so I encourage, if at all possible, to do things in a loving, kind manner. It's not easy. It's not definitely not always easy, but it does get easier. It does. And the stronger your relationship is with your higher self, I think the easier it becomes. And that is the foundation that the entire Center for Aligned Living is built upon, is the relationship that you have with your higher self, and then how you express yourself out in the world. And so I hope that this video on validation has helped you in some way. Kind of went off the rails there at the end, and I apologize. But yeah, if you find yourself going outside to justify, validate your opinions and your feelings, just maybe take note of that, and maybe try something different. Maybe start to see if you can't validate yourself. And you know, there's some great articles online if you want to look it up, or you can reach out. I'm always happy to talk to anybody about anything. So thank you for sticking with me through this video. I really appreciate you, and I will talk to you again very soon. All right, be well.